Welcome to Ask a Librarian, where Shasta College librarians answer your questions. Today, I'm going to answer the question, what does peer-reviewed mean? And this will be a two-part video with the second part addressing how to find peer-reviewed information in the library databases. Peer review is a formal process that articles go through to make sure they meet good scientific standards. It's kind of like if you have ever purchased clothes and you saw a little tag that says like inspected by, or if you buy a package to meat, you'll see on the packaging, it will say that it has been inspected and passed by the Department of Agriculture. And these are quality control assurances that your food isn't going to make you sick. And it's the same thing for academic articles, that they are ensuring that the information is accurate and trustworthy. There are a few assumptions and misconceptions around peer review that I wanted to address. The first one is that all articles in a library database are peer reviewed, and that's not true. You can find all kinds of information in the library databases. We have reputable newspapers and magazines, we have trade journals, and we have academic sources that aren't peer reviewed. The second one is very similar to the first one, but it's that all scholarly articles are peer reviewed. There's an assumption that if you're reading an article from an academic journal, that it has gone through the peer review process. And that's not always true. Not all journals have that process, and not every article requires a peer review process. It really depends on the topic and whether or not they are presenting findings from a study or if they are just reviewing and writing an opinion. The third one, and probably most important one, is that oftentimes students think that they can only trust and use peer-reviewed information. There are a lot of articles that are not peer-reviewed that are also trustworthy. And if you jumped right into reading peer-reviewed information, you might get overwhelmed. It's often very technical and written for other researchers that have doctorates. That doesn't always mean that it's going to always be too hard to read. But if that's your starting point, you might want to get some background on your topic first and read some newspaper or magazine or other reputable sources and get that knowledge before jumping into the peer-reviewed information. So here's a little bit about the peer review process and an overview. First, a scientist or a researcher will study something. They write about their results, often it's a team of researchers or authors. They submit it to a journal who then sends it on to the peer review team, and it's a formal process that they go through, and they review the findings and the process that the authors went through to come to their conclusions, and they check for accuracy and reliability. Sometimes they will send it back with feedback, and then the scientists and authors will review that and make changes and resubmit it, and then the article will finally get published. Now, there are some issues. Sometimes articles slip through and later on the scientific community says, hey, this isn't actually accurate, or new information comes to light. Like, science is a process, and so when we find out new information, now maybe an article that was once met that standard no longer meets that. And so that means that an article would be what's called retracted, and that the peer review gold standard was taken away from that article. And here's how you can check to see if an article is retracted. And the journal will no longer publish it, so you won't be able to get it on their website, but oftentimes you can still find it in databases or in open source, which comes up through like our One Search. So you can double check if you're using something like Zotero for your citations. It will give you a warning and say a citation that you're using has been retracted, and you can review this. And then also Retraction Watch is a really great website too, to double check that the sources you're using haven't been retracted and that it's not old and outdated information. I hope this information helped you understand a little bit more about what peer review is. Look for part 2, where I will show you how to find peer-reviewed articles in the Shasta College library databases. I will link to that video in the description here. If you have any questions or you want to submit your own question to be answered in this series, you can email us at askalibrarian@shastacollege.edu.